Welcome to High Five Fitness. I am Denet, the host and producer. A lot of fitness has to do with working out, but a huge portion of being fit is also what you eat. I like to say you are what you eat eats. Well, today I have a set of experts with me to help us learn more about what we should be eating. And also we're going to look at the paleo diet versus a vegan lifestyle. So in the studio with me, I have three guests, and I look forward to hearing from each of them. We have Sarah Pate, who will be starting us off going through, she's a avid CrossFitter. She teaches nutrition and just finished her master's degree. She follows the paleo diet or lifestyle, and I look forward to hearing and learning more about that. Next to Sarah, we have Michelle Brown, who is a Kung Fu champion and has quite a resume. So if I get out of hand, she'll get us back under control. But she is a vegan and doesn't eat any animal products, so I look forward to hearing about that and why she's a vegan and learning more what are the little secrets we can learn from her. Next to me is Birgette, who is a chocolate expert, particularly organic chocolate. She has just written a book, The Story of Chocolate. I look forward to learning some insights. So let's start off with Sarah. Sarah, first off, what is the paleo diet?
So the paleo diet is a philosophy that says that people's health and the way our bodies process food for tens of thousands of years has been moving along on a specific diet, and then during the agricultural revolution just 10,000 years ago, that changed dramatically, and our physiologically hasn't caught up, so that eating modern processed foods, 10,000 years, but predominantly the industrialization of food after World War II is at the root cause of most of the metabolic disease that we experience in the United States. So eating a diet of unprocessed foods pre-agricultural revolution, many people have found, kind of protects them from those modern diseases.
So is the paleo diet the same thing as a caveman diet?
Yes, another word, ancestral health. There's versions that include other foods like dairy, which are primal. So there's different aspects in the genre.
So why do you personally follow the paleo diet?
Well, I started out, my son was diagnosed with celiac disease when he was 3. He called it silly duck disease and went around telling everyone he was a glutard, which I still loved. Turned out he had a wheat allergy, but our whole family went on a gluten-free diet. And I started really doing a lot of research into why this would happen, because no one in our family had ever experienced this. And the health of everybody in our family improved. And so I used to be a competitive runner and was experiencing some autoimmune diseases, mostly arthritis in my toes.
Yeah.
And so the paleo diet for me I looked up what's the strongest anti-inflammatory diet. It was the paleo diet. So I adopted it 4 years ago, and every symptom I had related to autoimmune went away.
So I take it you don't eat any grains?
No grains, no legumes, nothing processed unless I process it myself or know who did. I personally don't eat dairy. I'm not nutritionally opposed to it if it's sourced well. And only meats where you know the entire food chain. Where was it grown? Is it grass-fed? Is it pasture-raised?
So what do you eat then? Let's hear.
Lots of vegetables. I'd say about 60% of my diet is vegetables. Again, organic, diverse vegetables. And the other 25% to 30% would be really good quality proteins and healthy fats.
All right, well, thank you. Well, I want to have a little contrast here because I believe Michelle Brown does eat a lot of grains. So could you tell us, first off, what is the vegan diet?
A vegan diet basically considers a larger picture than just what is nutritious for the one person. It looks at the entire scope of how the food was brought into the chain and considers the welfare of animals as much as it considers nutrient content. It goes beyond why I prefer the term of vegan lifestyle is because it goes beyond just what I eat. It goes into what I buy, what I wear, what I drive. It goes into everything that I think about. And it also goes into different parts of my life as far as the education that I have. So and so a vegan diet really a good vegan diet, because you can eat plastic and be vegan. So I say that often because for many years I was an unhealthy vegan. I'd get sick. I had breakouts. I would be, have injuries beyond what my sport of Kung Fu would impact. And when I became a plant-strong vegan, those things definitely, dispersed and went away. So
I have to ask, so what was your diet like when you were a competitor?
A lot of raw. So I would eat a lot of raw vegetables, uncooked. My pre-workout would be a bowl of cruciferous vegetables and half of a watermelon. So I actually eat a lot of food, which people think that, as a vegan you don't eat very much, but I probably eat more than most people eat in a given day.
So I have to jump in and just say, well, where's the protein coming from?
I was just going to say
especially as an athlete and someone that's training the way you are.
Right.
How do you get enough protein?
I do take some supplements, but I eat a lot of legumes. So my legume of choice is lentils, but I eat azuki beans as well, and I mix those with grains. I don't measure out. Sarah would probably shame me for this, but I don't measure out exactly my proteins. I go by how I feel, and my energy level is fairly high. I train people at 5:30 every morning, every day of the week, except for Sundays. And
large cups of black coffee?
Actually, no. I do take a little bit of caffeine, but I use a guarana-based caffeine, which is non-acidic, because caffeine does bother my joints and gives me some other side effects I don't prefer. But yeah, on a regular basis, my mainstay is mostly vegetables. I do eat sprouted breads, so I will have, a piece of toast now and then, or a sandwich with sprouted bread. But I try not to eat heavily processed foods at all. My diet is very much similar in that I don't eat processed foods and I stay away from sugar.
So can I make a huge distinction, though, the grains? Because a lot of, even your supplements are grain protein based? Essentially, or
spirulina is not grain protein based. However, yeah, I would say that some of my protein comes from grains.
And you're looking for organic grains?
Only organic grains. We eat organic and locally sourced. And in fact, my husband and I have a small farm. We grow a lot of our own food. We don't grow any grains, but most of our own vegetables.
Well, since we mentioned organic, I want to bring our next guest on. Birgette, you have you've done a lot of research, and you're a big proponent of organic cacao or chocolate. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so chocolate has actually a 4,000-year history. The Maya and the Olmecs before them used cacao for sacred ceremonies, and I think we should go back to that and, come back with the idea of your body really is your temple. Well, with chocolate you can really do that, especially organic chocolate. And so what we have here, for example, is a basket full of different types of organic / fair trade chocolate that you can find in a lot of Whole Foods or other retailers. And really what you want to look for in chocolate is the smallest list of ingredients. You've got your cacao or cocoa butter. If it's got sugar in it, that you might not want that if you want to really go for pure chocolate. So the pure you can go, I would say 70% or above. That's what you want to hit. You want to eat. The interesting thing about chocolate is all of the benefits that it imparts to the human body. There's actually a rather narrow dosage range. Like, you don't want to have too little and you don't want to have too much. So what they're recommending is 3.5 to 7 ounces of dark chocolate. Make sure it's dark and not milk chocolate.
Show our viewers about how much of a bar would that be?
Oh gosh, well,
I presume if you ate that whole plate, that would be too much?
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. Well, see, for example, this is a 2-ounce bar, right?
And what were you saying was the optimal amount to eat?
3.5. So
you want
a bar and a half like this a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
But with really, really dark chocolate, you'll find you can't eat that much.
Yeah. Well, you've got to, what I do, for example, is I'll spread it out throughout the day. Like, we'll have homemade oatmeal that I make. It takes 15 minutes on the stove. I cook it. I grate chocolate over it with fruits. I layered it into the pancakes. I'll put it into yogurt. I mean, I find ways to sneak all that chocolate in there.
I don't think I'd have a problem.
I don't think people will have a problem, no. Right.
So both of you also eat chocolate, I take it. That meets both of your diets.
Yeah, I think that to be classically paleo, it would be 100% cacao. to be, you know, a little bit of a cheat, then you'd still go you could go 100%, or you could go, you know, we don't really eat much chocolate that's under 85 or 88, but it's a great treat, and it is incredibly healthy.
Well, you have this plate sitting in front of you, so could you tell us about what are those?
They smell really good.
My mouth's watering,
Yeah.
and they do smell very good.
The paleo diet is predominantly whole foods, in their most, you know, when you get them in their most whole food state. So it's mostly vegetables, some nuts, some seeds. But to be human is to want a treat. And so what I like to do is give people recipes that they can have treats instead of cheats, that don't derail their diet, but still allow them to have treats and some baked goods. So this is a recipe that's made with fresh organic blueberries from the farmer's market. It's made with almond flour and coconut flour, pastured eggs. It's sweetened with powdered dates, which I think Michelle's gonna also show some date syrup. But the reason I like that is because it's only an 8 on the glycemic scale.
Oh,
so
that's
it's
low.
very low. It's the way your body won't have an insulin response to it, and has a
Real quick, could you give us what's oatmeal and what are some other foods?
Well, a piece of bread is white bread is 100 on the glycemic scale. Maltodextrin is 150 for a processed food, which is in almost all recovery drinks. So watch
wow.
that. So honey, 56.
And these are 8, you said?
And the sugar, date sugar, because it has so much mineral and fiber content in it. And then also this has a cup of walnut oil, cold pressed walnut oil in it. And so the fat and flaxseed. So the fiber and the fat also minimize the glycemic response. So you get to eat a treat and have really concentrated nutrition with very little response from a glycemic or insulin response.
And that's one of your favorite treats, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fast, especially for the kids when they're running through the house in the morning. And one batch has 6 eggs in it, so it's a really good protein source.
How long do those take you to make?
About 20 minutes to cook and probably 15 minutes to make.
Well, thank you for making them. I'm looking forward to eating
Help
one.
yourself.
All right. Now, Michelle, she mentioned date sugar. I believe you brought some.
Yeah, I actually have a syrup. I also have date sugar at home, but this is really nice to put into. I eat oatmeal probably twice a week, and I use this in my oatmeal, and it's very sweet, so you really don't need very much. And there is one ingredient, and that is organic dates, which I really like. Sarah and I were talking earlier about how, you know, the list of ingredients can be so long, and if that ingredient list is all vegetables dried, it's fine, but oftentimes as you get to the bottom, there's words that are hard to pronounce. And so, you know, once I see those things, I'll back away from a product, and as somebody, you know, if I wanted to make these, I would substitute with something like you know, the egg would become a potato starch, so that would be less of a healthy treat.
Chia seeds.
For me. Chia seeds, great, I'll try that.
That'll work.
And I do eat a lot of chia seeds anyway, so great. So she and I actually have a lot in common. Date syrup being one of them.
Well, let's see, what are some other foods that you have or some other goodies you brought with?
Well, so one thing that I know that we both use, and you do too, we all have this in common, is maca powder. I use this in my oats. I use this also in my protein shake for recovery after a workout. And
from a nutrition standpoint, maca gives good energy, but it also is used to help all of your sex hormones. So it's a great natural boost to your sex
Bonus
life.
for all the viewers out
Right,
there.
Exactly. And then just staying on with the shakes, I use spirulina for my protein. Not always, but I often use the spirulina protein powder, which is plant-based. And both of those are organic. And then oftentimes I will use tahini, which is a good base for cheeses that I make, which is all just ground sesame seeds. It's basically, I think there's one ingredient in this as well. And this is just one brand of tahini. I prefer organic, but there are several on the shelves that don't cost this much because it is organic and kosher and non-GMO, of course. And then I also have some cheeses that are vegan that are not based in soy. They're actually, this is a new product that's just come out, and you're going to start to see more of this, but this is a cashew-based cheese, and it's a brie, so it's got a nice little crust on it.
Yeah.
And that is something that I have missed for many years. And so when I found this, I should probably invest in this company.
So
I'm
is that
excited
like
about
your,
that too.
is that your
Yeah.
one weakness? The one thing you really miss the most is cheese?
You know, I was always lactose intolerant. I was not allowed dairy as a child and wheat because I had asthma. So my dad took me off those products to sedate the asthma, and it actually worked. So I'm not big on wheat now. It's kind of been, you know, people will say I love to have bread. I'm not a big bread person. I think because I just never formed that relationship, or maybe that addiction. Cheese was kind of the same way. I always saw it as a little bit too oily, but I always liked brie. It was the brie that I missed because it doesn't have that oily feeling as much to it,
Yeah.
quality brie or aged cheese. So that's why I really enjoy this. And then this is a kind of a feta style, which is just made from cashews and macadamia nuts and some enzymes and cultures. So very simple ingredients.
So the one thing I've noticed from the bodybuilding standpoint, when I hear all the foods we're talking about here are kind of high calories. We're looking at a lot of nuts, different nut butters, oils, and chocolate. All of those tend to be higher calories. So do you have any, you don't worry about calories, or how's that work? If you want to go around and...
I'll answer and then I can throw the ball. I personally don't count calories. I eat when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm about 20% from being full. It's just something that I don't really worry about. I worry more about the nutrient content in my food as opposed to calories. I'm moving all day. I teach between 4 and 9 sessions of fitness per day. So I'm not worried. I usually probably should eat more calories on certain days, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think obsession, and I also think that there is a serious problem with people in America completely stressing too much about what they eat. If you follow a rule of listening to your body, doing what your body tells you is good, but not, I mean, first you have to have obviously the background and the information, but especially if you're an athlete, you're going to know how things affect you in performance. And the answer is always eat more vegetables. So if you have a plate, and instead of counting calories, you look at your plate and say, 60% to 75% of my plate is made up of vegetables, and then there's whatever form of protein you use. It could be beans and rice. It could be, cabbage and beans again, or sesame seeds, but a complete protein. Then you're never going to overeat because you'll be so full of these high quality vegetables. And if you want another piece of steak, you have to match that with 3/4. If you just make that decision in your head, you cannot go wrong.
So what are some ingredients that you use to cook with?
Well, I like it, so it depends what I'm cooking. I like to use, the biggest thing that people kind of go wrong with in the paleo diet is that they gravitate towards nuts and dried fruit as like this fast grab and go food. And that completely will put them over the edge on a standpoint of a balance of healthy omega-6 to omega-3 fats and the overconsumption of nuts, which causes inflammation. And dried fruit, which is so concentrated in sugar. So that's why I go back to vegetables. But the way I like vegetables the most is all vegetables are sugar. They're a carbohydrate, which is just a sugar. So if you toss them in a fat you like I like olive oil or duck fat's one of my favorites, and then you roast them, then it crystallizes the sugar in those vegetables and they form this layer of deliciousness.
Well, that sounds pretty good.
Fantastic.
Olive oil too?
You can do olive oil, it depends on temperatures. Every oil has a smoke point, in which point you're going to damage that fat, which is why, for instance, I like to use duck fat. It's a saturated fat, so the smoke point is super high. So under 375, you can do olive oil.
So Michelle, under your lifestyle, what do you cook with? I mean, you can't use duck fat when you're cooking, can you?
I can, but I don't. So I choose to use coconut oil. We minimize our oil intake in our household. When I bake or when I cook vegetables in the oven, I do tend to use olive oil, but I cook them slow and low. So it takes a little bit longer, which uses more energy. So that is something that I do think about, but you got to balance those things. And I do use avocado oil. So, and then for baking, I've made the mistake, which we discussed earlier, of using cacao for cooking. And that is a very chocolatey taste. So that was a blunder. but I ate it anyway because I'm not going to waste it. And so, you know, I'll generally use cacao for baking instead of butter. We don't use any margarine in our household.
So what do you do when you have a long day and you're traveling or you're away from your kitchen? Do you, I guess you bring a box of chocolate with, and that's pretty easy. You just pack up your suitcase and go for it?
Actually, I mean, not really. It's, I mean, you know, I might take some of that with me. But when I travel, I do actually like to taste the local foods. I mean, that to me is the most important. I mean, I always gravitate, as Sarah said, to vegetables. And I remember my one terrible experience was in Honduras when I traveled there. And every restaurant I would go into, it was just meat, meat, meat. Oh, no, fried meat. And, you know, more, I mean, I looked at the menu and I scoured it and I had trouble finding vegetables and I suffered. And so you've got to kind of, you know, decide, well, do I really eat local and do like the locals do? Or if the locals, all they eat is meat, well then, you know, how can I survive? So it's definitely a challenge when you're traveling to other countries, because I think here in the US we are incredibly blessed and incredibly spoiled in the sense that you have all of this bounty. I mean, you can have cashew-based cheese. You know, I come from the Czech Republic and I remember in the wintertime you had potatoes and onions, and you're lucky if any vegetables survive that winter, you know, back then. And coming here to America, my eyes started to be really opened up. And over time, I realized that, you know, when I started learning about the microbiome and the role of the little trillions of bacteria that, you know, live there, and they don't pay rent, but in a way they do because they're making you healthy. So when you were talking about addiction, right, addiction to gluten, I mean, I had that.
Well,
I had problems
what's in this bowl here? I think I might be able to be addicted to some of this stuff.
Well, before Birgette goes to that point, I want to say that that's true in California. I find that traveling to Scotland, or I just went to Scotland, Spain, Italy, it is easier for me to eat there than traveling across the United States and areas of the entire middle of the United States, some areas in the South. I find that more difficult to find the foods that meet my standards of quality and nutrition than traveling outside the United States.
Well, that's true. I mean, Italy, of course, has the Mediterranean diet. And
California is kind of, you know.
Yes. Well, but also New York. I mean, New York has some incredible food. But
just
I mean,
staying
if you
on the
look
coast,
at
Portland.
because that's where the ports are, right?
Yeah,
so that's where all the produce
Right.
comes in.
Well, Michelle, what do you do when you travel? You've got to...
Well, when I traveled to Brazil for the 2003 World Tournament, it was carniceria after carniceria.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's like, let's go have meat. And so here's me, you know, sitting there. I did bring my bullet and my spirulina, so I pack with me. I brought my own homemade trail mix, my own homemade granola. So I tend to pack things. I mean, every time you've seen me, I think I've had a cooler. I always come armed with food because I definitely think about that. And I have a supportive, you know, my husband is also vegan. So for example, today I left at 5 o'clock and didn't get home until around 3. And so I'm out all day, and he has everything ready for me to go in a cooler the day before as I'm preparing for my classes. We both own our company, so it's, you know, we're supportive of each other. And I think, you know, that's one of the reasons I really enjoy the vegan lifestyles, because we have formed a little community. And, you know, I'll bring my vegetables to my friend's house and she'll come back and make me a gluten-free zucchini bread. So, you know, you just kind of learn. And over time, I've just learned to manage my diet well and prepare myself, because my health is my #1 asset. And I don't mind spending the time on it. I press my own almond milk and people think I'm crazy. But, you know, I mean, I do it every 3 days, and it takes me 15 minutes, and I actually enjoy the time. So.
But this idea of community is critically important. So if you, I mean, if you have food intolerances, if you have food allergies, or even if you just follow a certain food guideline that's important to you for whatever reason, it can be isolating. And isolation is something that we do so strongly in the United States when we start to shame and blame people for their diseases relative to their food. So this idea of community and finding people that are like you and sharing those things and exploring and finding that is just critically important. And there is nothing more communal than food. I mean, the word with bread is companion. It's compans with bread.
Right. Yeah, I read Michael Pollan's book, Cooked, and he really explained how cooking is what brought people together. So speaking of bringing things together, could you explain a little bit more about what are the chocolates there? What have we got?
They all look good.
They are all very good. Well, I just wanted to bring this this basket here to show you that there are so many different companies and so many different formulations. Now you can go pure chocolate, you know, where there's basically nothing. You can put in cherries, you can put in almonds, you can put in salt, which not everybody likes. So it's, you know, there's a tremendous variety of chocolates available today, and that has come to this point because chocolate has a 4,000-year history. And so for example, when it went from the Maya country to Europe, they added all kinds of things that we no longer put in chocolate. Like, for example, ambergris. I don't know if you guys know what ambergris is, but it's basically whale bile. It's what whales cough up on the beach when
perfume.
Not familiar with that.
Yes, it is used in the floral industry. So they used to mix ambergris into chocolate. They used to put whole eggs in there. And they also used to counterfeit chocolate. They used to put lead dust and bricks, and people got really, really sick. So that's kind of the dark side that, you know, can you imagine putting lead dust into chocolate just to bulk it up a little bit? So so I think, you know, today, if you get a spare ant leg in there, that's fine.
That's organic.
That's organic. Hopefully it's
And
organic.
protein.
Yeah, so it's, you know, it just goes to show you that all of these companies, I mean, if you just look at some of the ingredients, you know, I mean, basically all it is, for example, here we have unsweetened chocolate, dry roasted almonds, cocoa butter, that kind of thing. So, you know, when you look at the chocolate, don't just look at how pretty the wrapper is. Really look for the shortest list of ingredients, yeah.
Okay,
most natural.
well, we are starting to run out of time, but I want to get a last question in. So let's start with Sarah. Sarah, any last tips for our viewers? Or do you want to talk about, I want to hear, is paleo better than vegan?
I think that it's better to focus kind of on the commonality, so it depends on the person. So the rules that I see are eat real food. So know where your food comes from, and Michelle and I and Birgette all agree on that. I feel strongly about it. And then it's listening to your body and how you thrive and what makes you feel good and what builds, you know, you in a sense of community to be healthy and thrive. And
well, we are running out of time, but we're going to end with that note. Eat real food, not too much. Keep it real. Lots of vegetables.
yes,
And a little chocolate.
and lots of chocolate.
Follow the sweet dessert.
A bar and a half.
And the fewer the list of ingredients, the better. Well, I want to thank each of you for coming on our show.